Malcolm Gladwell, so that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, I mean, sort of seeing angles and things and ways to reimagine our life and community. And I think for this group, just for starters, to learn a little bit about your own pathway to purpose and how you went from being an engineer to the founder and president of a blog that is connecting people around ideas.
It's craziness.
Yeah.
The really cool thing about Malcolm Gladwell is that he is interested in alternative ideas. Like I heard him interviewed once, and he says, if everybody believes something, I like reflexively don't believe it. And he also is like very interested in like counter thoughts. And not that it's like I am, I'm going to embrace every like crazy counter thought, but I want to understand them. Like I want to understand the context of them. I did get a civil engineering degree in 1995. I went to work in a really great engineering company in my hometown doing like standard engineering things, sewer systems, water systems, road and street design, working with cities, working with developers. I was not very good at it. And not that I wasn't good at it like I wasn't competent. I mean, I was competent, I could do this work. But it didn't captivate me. And I don't say that like to our civil engineering students. I think it is a great profession. And there's a lot that's very captivating about it. But the thing about engineering, more so than I think a lot of professions, is that when you get out of school, you have this 4 years of, we don't call it apprenticeship, but it essentially is an apprenticeship. You have to work for 4 years with a licensed engineer before you can qualify to take your exam and get your license. And the cynical side of me, that's 4 years where they indoctrinate you into the way things have always been done. And I'm just like reflexively not a way things have always been done kind of person. And I would ask these questions at our meetings, like why are we doing it that way? And the answer that I got was, well, that's what the manual says, or that's the way we do things, or that's the way it's been done. And I found a lot of, I respected these people. They're all very smart. They're very brilliant. They have very good rational reasons for why they do the things they do and why they were teaching me the way they were. But there was this big part of me that said, I'm not fully with this program. And so I actually left, and I went back to graduate school and got a planning degree. And my thought was, I don't really like what engineers, I don't really like what I'm doing here. A lot of it was fixing problems that to me should never have been a problem. And I thought, if we just did better planning, then our engineering wouldn't be so dumb. So I thought, I'll go and be like a really good planner. Like I will plan this neighborhood better so that the engineer won't have to come in later and have like only bad options they can put on the table. And I got the degree. I worked as a planner. I started my own planning company actually when I was in graduate school. A lot of the cities that I had worked for as an engineer said, hey Chuck, we heard you're doing planning work now. Would you come work for us? And so I by the time I got done with grad school, I had 2 of my fellow students that I had hired. I started my own company. I was doing planning work all over the state. At one point, I had 5 offices and 13 staff, and we were our company's mission was to save rural America, which is, if that's not pretentious enough, to give you a little glimpse into my mind. Let me tell you, rural America did not think it needed to be saved. That was the flaw in my business plan. It's kind of like going to the donut shop and saying, my career goal is to get everybody live healthy lives. You don't start at the donut shop with that mission. So that it was very good, but I realized very quickly that the planning profession also did not have the answers I was looking for. A lot of things that I learned and a lot of things that taught me how cities worked, but the planning profession itself, like the engineering profession, has a certain set of protocols and accepted practices and approaches. They're more prone to cling to fads. You know, like engineers will do the same thing for generations because it's in a manual, and the planning manuals are thinner, so they'll grab like a fad here and like we'll do this and then we'll do that fad. You know, in the 70s it was pedestrian malls. You know, it's been new urbanism now for a while. This is our latest fad, so we'll go do this. I was more interested in understanding why our cities were going broke. Why in the richest country in the world, when we were pouring trillions of dollars into public works projects and trillions of dollars into building neighborhoods and cities, why were our cities not overflowing with wealth? Why were we seeing neighborhoods completely fall apart and streets that couldn't be maintained and libraries that had to be closed early and parks that were full of weeds? Like, how could this possibly be? So that was my like burr under my saddle that kind of pushed me out of the comfort zone of both the planning and the engineering professions.
How do you teach that kind of counter thinking? How do you teach that kind of questioning? I know you're not a teacher, but I imagine you've been in conversation with a lot of people over time about just learning to think and see differently. So I wonder, for the sake of our students and those of us who work with students and with our fellow planners and city administrators, how do we loosen up some of those boxes and blinders? And
I'm not a very patient person. My kids will tell you that, and it's something I work on. I get the question all the time, okay, Chuck, the stuff you're talking about is great, but what do I do? Like, I'm a city planner. What's the 3 things I should do? And my response is think, think, think. Like, he goes, I don't know the answer. I mean, that's the whole point, is that there is no like prescription you can take. We all have to kind of think. And to me, the lessons that we took from the Great Depression and World War II as a country was that if we get together, pool our resources, pool our mind, and kind of segment things out, we can accomplish a lot in a very short period of time. And so you see like businesses and government and all these things take on, after World War II, the military hierarchy and structure of things. You have a general, then you have colonels, then you have majors and captains and lieutenants, and then troops, right? And so you can look in businesses at the time. I mean, there were business manuals that said, this is how you do great things. I mean, 3M, a great Minnesota company, arranged themselves like this. They realized after a short period of time that, yes, you could get a lot done very quickly, but what you weren't going to get is any degree of innovation. You could build that widget like over and over again, like highly efficiently. But if the market shifted and changed, everybody had their thing that they were doing, and you weren't getting innovation. Businesses changed. 3M started a whole innovation squad. They ultimately brought that into the company and kind of made the whole company a flatter, more team-oriented kind of approach. Tons of innovation. When we go to government, what we see is that we've largely kept that 1950s bureaucratic structure. And what it has done, sadly, we attract a lot of very smart people to government, a lot of very innovative people in government, and then we put them in structures and institutions that don't value risk-taking, innovation, new ideas, and in fact, actually does the opposite. And I'll give you like one example. And this was we were working on a project in my hometown. It was a little contest. And what we were trying to do is just get people to think differently about their neighborhoods and identify like low-hanging fruit kind of cheap kind of things. So we did a little contest and we said, 20 people, come forward, we'll give you $100 each. Go out and do a project in the neighborhood to make the neighborhood better. And I told my dad about this. And my dad, old curmudgeon, he goes, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He goes, you're gonna have someone go out and take the $100, they're gonna put they're gonna buy some Christmas tree lights and put them on the tree in their yard, and they're gonna say, look, I made the neighborhood better. I said, well, yeah, Dad, someone will do that. But the idea was, of the 20, we're gonna pick the best 5 and have them go on to the next round, and we're gonna give them $400. And so what I did is I spent $100 to identify the guy who didn't have a really good idea. right? And that's a pretty like cheap amount of money to spend to identify the people with really great ideas from the people who didn't. But you take my dad's mentality, and what happens is when government tries to do that kind of thing, the front page of the newspaper the next day, and my wife's a journalist, so this isn't a knock on newspapers, this is a knock on us. The front page of the newspaper the next day would not be 5 awesome ideas discovered for just $500, right? It would be, you know, city wastes $100 on Christmas tree lights on some guy's house. And we would be all outraged about how dumb government is. And so the reaction of the people in government is to hunker down, become more process-oriented, and really kind of shove innovation way to the rear. And that's, you know, that is a cultural problem, less with government than it is with us as people.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a jump, but I'm sort of intuiting there might be a connection because one of the very interesting things about Strong Towns as a blog is the engagement of people, not just government people, not just planners and city engineers, but citizens. And so is that part of the way that you help change the culture? Why such a broad net? Why bring us all together? I mean, look at this room. We've got folks on, you know, from all different quarters of care for our communities.
This is the crazy part. Because Strong Towns now today is a movement of people across the world, really, but particularly across North America. I started out as an engineer planner writing a blog about what I was seeing. And it was really an attempt to try to figure some things out in my mind. Because when you write, it forces you to think through things. And I really thought that my audience was people like me. It was fellow, we laugh and joke and call them apes now, architects, planners, engineers, fellow apes, you know, highly evolved apes, but apes nonetheless. Apes who, you know, I figured that was our audience. And I really thought like my mission in life, if I was going to do this nonprofit thing, which I was being kind of pushed to do, was to go and talk to fellow apes, because if I could just show them the data and the insights and help them see things differently, we'd have this revolution. And so I started doing that, and what I found is that the staff members would look at it and say, yeah, that's amazing. That scares the heck out of me. Like, I can't do that. You know, you have to go talk to the elected officials, because if I come forward to the elected officials with this stuff, they're going to say, you know, go, you know, forget it, you're nuts. So then I said, okay, I'll go talk to elected officials. And I started going around and talking to council members and plan commission members, and I would get this, wow, okay, that's why none of this makes sense. That's why when we ask the staff for something, they come back, it's like they're speaking Martian. Like, this makes a ton of sense. What do we do? And I'm like, well, I don't, you know, you got to think. And they're like, yeah, we need a program. We need a plan. We need like, and I'm like, well, the plan is to stop doing this. And they're like, well, no, we actually need like, give us the 4 policy things we do. It was just so frustrating to me. Like, I don't know what that is. Like, I just know you can't do this, but you got to. Then we had our first national gathering, and we said, anybody who's interested in Strong Towns from around the country, come, and we're just going to meet and chat about things for a weekend. And we thought we'd get like 30 or 40 people. We got 100. And here they are sitting in this room. And we start going around, like, who are you? What do you do? Well, I'm a computer programmer. I'm a florist. I run a retail shop. I run a bike shop. There were no apes there. There were a few, right? But like 10%, 15%, there were all these other people. And it was this awakening for me, because I'm an engineer, I'm a planner. I'm trying to explain the world that I see the way I would explain it to my dad, who is a teacher. And what I've like turned around and found was that there are all these people who relate to it. And it made me, and really my board that has helped me a ton, realize and understand that the role that we play in this revolution that needs to happen in this country is not helping the apes, not helping the elected officials, but really changing our cultural conversation about how our cities should grow, how we should do public investments, what prosperity looks like, and how that can be a shared, sustainable experience in a way that it has not been for a long time.
And that change in culture requires the non-apes. Do you have an acronym for the rest of
No,
I can work on this.
we actually call them strong citizens. And we use the term citizen in the broadest sense of the word. If you care about the community you live in, you're a strong citizen. And the call to strong citizens is not you should run for council, although some do. It's not you should go to graduate school and get a planning degree and go be a city planner, although some do. It's you should care about whatever it is you have the extent to care about. If that means sharing our message with somebody else, like that's the extent, then do that. If that means going out and planting flowers in the median in your street because it's overgrown with weeds, then do that. If it means getting involved with the library board or the neighborhood revitalization group or whatever it is, the cultural shift is that government at the local level is not something we pay other people to do. Government is all of us working together, owning our cities and making them better. So when we see that neighborhood in decline, that's not because City Hall is broke. That's because we're broke. Like we're doing that. Like culturally, that's ours. We own that. We have to deal with that. And I think the mindset of a really successful city, when we look back in history, is a mindset where everybody was vested in the progress of that city. Today, we have a mindset, and it's largely a byproduct of our affluence, that if we pay people to care about the city, then we can just expect results, and we don't really have to care that deeply. And the reality is, cities don't work unless we all contribute to the extent that we can.
Well, I think that our audience here of apes and strong citizens probably
apes.
have some questions to ask you, either about what you just shared with us or